There is one skill that every meditator, no matter what your path of meditation is, there's one skill that every meditator needs to know. This skill comes after you've already learned a meditation technique and you've had some time becoming comfortable with that technique so you know how it works and you're able to perform it correctly. So before we go into this, make sure that you are already fairly confident with using your current meditation technique. You know what it's about, you know how to do it, and you're able to practice that technique for at least 10 to 20 minutes at a time while staying alert and awake. Now, it doesn't mean stressed. You can remain relaxed while being alert and awake. And the example I always give is that of remembering a time when you've seen something very beautiful in nature, or you were just observing something that you're interested in. In that moment, you were perfectly present, you were likely not thinking, and you were just aware of what it is you were looking at. So that same kind of state, that alert yet relaxed state, that present state, you want to work on developing that while you practice your chosen meditation technique. Now, what do you do once you've already got a few months of getting the groove of your meditation technique? What do you do? Well, many people stop there and they continue to use the technique, which is going to be wonderful for them when it comes to stress management and the health benefits that those kinds of, the proper use of any kind of meditation technique will give. But after you get it, it's important to continue and to develop the next skill. And this next skill, I like to call it holding your mental breath. Holding your mental breath. In the meditation tradition that I teach, Kriya Yoga, one of the teachers, Lahiri Mahasaya, would always speak to this idea that you want to exist and abide in the after effects of the Kriya practice, or the after effects of the meditation techniques that are specific to this tradition, the Kriya Yoga tradition. He would advise you to try to abide in the after effects. And this, in a sense, happens when we learn to hold the mental breath. Yogananda, if I recall correctly, I had heard a story where he said that to meditate and to practice your meditation techniques, but to not sit in the silence or the quietude or the peacefulness generated from that, meaning eventually you let go of the technique and you simply sit and abide in that after experience, that silence. He said to practice your techniques and then to not abide in that silence is like preparing a wonderful meal, a beautiful meal, and laying the table out perfectly, and then rather than sitting down to eat that meal and enjoy it and take in the nutrition, you just throw it all away. So the techniques are like the preparation of a meal, in that they set it up for you such that you have the transformational or that experience of inner peace that meditation is supposed to bring. And that all comes by developing this skill of learning to hold the mental breath. Now, how do you do that? I'm going to tell you how I do it. And from the outset, you need to know that this is really not something that someone can explain to you, break it down mechanically. It's something you have to figure out. Just like when you first learned to ride a bike, your parent or whoever was teaching you stuck you on the bike and they could kind of give you an idea, but you still had to figure out how to pedal and keep your balance until you got the hang of it and you had that aha moment. So the same is going to be true of this idea of holding the mental breath. So what I like to do is advise people to remember a time when you were having a conversation with someone and you were waiting for them to be quiet so that you could talk. And maybe there have been times when you've interrupted other people. And when you interrupt, that's not holding your breath. That's not holding your words back. But when you're talking to someone and you really want to speak, but you know you need to let them finish and you need to actually listen and pay attention, what do? Well, you have to use your will to say, nope, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to hold my breath. I'm going to wait. I'm going to listen because I need to hear what they're saying so I respond appropriately. So that mechanical thing that goes on inside you when you are talking to someone and you know you need to be quiet and wait and listen, that's the exact same principle that you do when you hold your mental breath in meditation. Because what often happens in meditation is if people don't fall asleep, which usually is what happens, especially if they're sleep deprived or don't know how to stay alert and awake yet relaxed, then the individual will start kind of talking to themselves. They'll think about different things, all kinds of random stuff will come up. They'll start having a little inner dialogue about something, or they'll try to pull up an affirmation or a mantra to affirm, this is all God, or I know divine love, or peace. What they're doing is they're just talking more. And the after effect experience of meditation occurs when that all stops, when you clear all that out. For example, in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, there is an initial statement that says that yoga, or the experience of oneness, clarity, peace, occurs when the changes and fluctuations in the meditator's field of awareness cease. And you've caught glimpses of that before. You just weren't paying attention because it wasn't very flashy. It wasn't trying to grab your awareness. So what you're doing is you're learning to just, with whatever it takes, to shut up that little mind in your head. Practicing the meditation techniques themselves will give you a leg up on that. It will give you a greater ability to do it. That's why you practice the meditation techniques. But you, to really get the full benefit of it, have to do that work of afterwards learning to hold that mental breath. So you've practiced your mantra or your pranayama or your self-inquiry and awareness meditation, or whatever it is you use that. And then after, say, 10 to 20 minutes, you let it go. You keep your eyes closed if that's how you meditate. Sitting up straight, always recommend sitting up straight, not lying down, never lying down, because you'll probably fall asleep. And then you feel the body, and you are aware of the mind, and all you're aiming to do is simply abide there in that awareness and in that silence. And after the meditation technique concludes, there may be just a 3-second interval before the mind kicks back in again, before you're not holding your mental breath. And that's okay, because you've got 3 seconds of it. But now what you do is you have to, this is what I do. I have a little talk with myself. Okay, I'm not going to say anything internally. I'm not going to comment on anything that arises in my awareness for as long as I can, which means that if I'm sitting there quietly, and if an image or a memory arises, I just let it arise and watch it pass. I don't start to say, what's that about? I need to stop thinking about this, and so on. I might want to, and I catch that little inner voice starting to say something or think something about it. And what I do is I just imagine that I'm backing up and, nope, I'm just holding my mental breath, not even going to talk about it. And think about other situations in your life where you've seen something going on in front of you. Maybe you've got kids and you see them making a mistake, and you know that no matter what you say to them, it's not going to make any difference. So you have to learn to just be quiet and let them figure it out for themselves. So this same kind of feeling, the same kind of mechanical action using your willpower is what allows you to hold your mental breath. So to practice this, go do your meditation like you normally would. Then give yourself permission to let go of the technique and to simply sit quietly with your awareness turned within, just observing the sensations of your body, the thoughts that arise in your mind, or if it's just spaciousness, if it's just openness and clarity, just observe that. But then you might start to notice an image come up, or an idea, or a thought, and you, being a conscious sentient being, can say, no, I'm not doing that. And it might be that for a little while you have to keep saying things in your mind like no, or not paying attention. And eventually you're even able to pull back from that such that you don't have to say no. It's just because that's also talking internally. You just simply have to, I'm not doing it. You're just holding your mental breath. And anytime a new image or thought or sensation or feeling arises, your inner state is of one of non-commentary. You're not commenting on it. You're not thinking about it. It's just coming up and leaving. It might not leave. It might hang around for a little while, but it's just observing, and eventually it'll pass and something new will come up. And in time, the more you're able to get the hang of holding this mental breath as things arise in your awareness and fall away, eventually those things that arise get less and less. They become less present. They don't show up, try to pull your attention away as much. And then what happens is, if you can really do it well, and this takes a lot of practice, this is not something that I want you to think you're going to be able to do well over the course of a week or a month. This is something that takes years of practice, and this is what the great sages and yogis and meditators of throughout history have learned, and that's why they've dedicated their life to that practice, because it takes that kind of commitment. Eventually what happens is, you're able to hold that space, and then nothing arises. No memories, no thoughts, no commentary. And when that happens, that's a whole other level in a way. It's a metaphor, analogy, allegory, not an allegory, but it's a, by level, I mean, it's an analogy. I'm not meaning that as though there are different levels. I'm just talking here. But then you can abide in what's called pure awareness. Pure awareness. And then when you train yourself to abide in pure awareness for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, then you are experiencing the profound effects of meditation and the profound reality of meditation. Not to get too much into philosophy of yogic ideals, but some say there are these three different kinds of worlds. There's the physical world of physical form. There's the astral world, which are the emotions and energy and transformation. There's the causal world. And if you've ever studied yogic philosophy, the causal world is essentially built up of all those precursors to this actual physical experience. And what is required to have physical experience? Well, we have to have organs to perceive things, which means like the ability to see, to hear. We have to be able to touch things and move things. So the actual objects that we interact with in this world, that we hear, that we see, that we taste. And that's essentially talking about the physical world. But as we go up, and as we begin to pull back into that state of abiding as the witness, the observer, even witnessing the ability to see or to hear, what we're doing is we're moving into that causal realm. Because in that causal realm, there is only the potential. There's not the engagement in the senses. There's not the engagement with the objects. And as we move from the causal realm further upwards and so on, we become closer to this ideal of what people call pure consciousness or God or pure divinity. And, well, that's a whole other topic. But by doing meditation in this way that we've just described, learning to meditate well with your technique, then learning to hold your mental breath such that all can fall away. And then eventually that goes on long enough to where you're simply able to be aware without commentary, without thinking, without images rising and falling. Then you are experiencing a very profound aspect of meditation. And you are preparing yourself, in a way, for full experience or understanding, appreciation of the source of all of our experiences, the source of this life experience. So that's a ways off, and I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time worrying about that. What I would do is master your meditation technique first, and then get a real handle on learning to hold your mental breath and learning to abide without this inner reaction to what arises. And once you get the hang of that, well, then we can talk more. But that's enough homework for you to do right now. So get on that and see how that helps your meditation practice grow.